I start this review? It's Sophia, what do you expect? Hi besties, a little bit of a long time no see, but I'm so happy you're here. If you're new here, I'm Sophia and I absolutely love reading romance books. I'm not gonna lie, I've been a little bit slack with all of my reading wrap-ups for the past few months, so I figured today we could kind of round out the past few months. I could make my big comeback and we can recap all of the books that I have read in the past like 3.5 months. There's quite a few new favorites. One in particular is a contender for my favorite book of the year, but there is also quite a few flops, quite a few disappointments. I will say my reading has definitely slowed down substantially this year in comparison to last year, but now that uni is finished, I'm gonna be really delusional and I'm gonna try and chase after my Goodreads goal. And I'm also just really hoping to get back into reading properly and bring you guys some more content. So yeah, if you guys do enjoy this video, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe because I would absolutely love to have you here, and let's get into it. So we are going to be starting things off with a bang. This first book is a contender for my favorite book of the year. I think about this book at least once a week. After I finished it 3 months ago, I thought about it every day. Obviously it's slowed down a little bit since then, but I adore this book so much. It got me out of a really bad reading slump, and I don't know, it's just like the perfect concoction of all my favorite tropes. So this is Playing by the Rules by Monica Murphy. I gave this one initially a 4.5 star, but I'm like, given how much it's stayed on my mind, I'm very tempted to bump it up to a 5 star. I also gave it a 3.5 out of 5 on my spicy scale. If you're new here, my spicy scale is basically just a scale of how much spice is in the book and kind of like how detailed it is. So this one got a 3.5. Playing by the Rules is a college football romance. It wouldn't be one of my favorite books if it wasn't a sports romance. It's also brother's best friend where the lines get blurred, so there's tons of forbiddenness, tons of sneaking around, and just like the forbidden aspect of like hooking up in secret locations and like sneaking out together is one of my favorite tropes of all time. If a book has that and it's done well, it's like guaranteed to be a 4 star. I just love it so much. So the kind of general plot of this one is that Blair and Cam have always had kind of a little crush on each other, but they have never acted on it because of the whole brother's best friend thing, and there's a tiny age gap of 2 years. However, at the beginning of the book, Blair transfers to the same college as Cam and her brother, and things heat up a little bit, you know, the infatuation is reignited and oh, it's delicious. It's so good. By the end of this book, I absolutely adored Cam and Blair. I love them so much. I will say at the beginning, Blair was a tiny bit overbearing, but honestly, me too, so I'm not holding it against her. I ended up loving her. She definitely grew on me throughout the book. My one kind of critique of this book, I suppose, is that the third act climax was a tiny little bit cringy, kind of icked me out a tiny bit, but I don't really care. I still love this book so much. I definitely forgave it, and I just love Cam and Blair and their toxicity. So I love this book so much. The next 2 books I actually read in my what I realistically read in a week reading vlog. So if you want like more of an in-depth review and like go through my thoughts and feelings entirely, go watch that one. But this next book is another one that I absolutely loved. This is Out on a Limb by Hannah Burnham Young. I gave this one a 4.5 star because it was just so cute. I also did give it a 2 out of 5 on my spicy scale. There was a few scenes, but they weren't very detailed and there just wasn't many and they weren't like that hot. So, you know, 2 out of 5. So essentially the entire plot is just that Bo and Win meet at a friend's party, they hook up and Win falls pregnant, and it just follows them through their kind of journey of acknowledging it, dealing with it, understanding with it, and like, you know, becoming parents together. I will say there is some fantastic disability representation in this book. Both of our main characters have a limb difference, which is amazing. I loved reading about it, and I loved reading about how they bonded over that as well at their initial meeting. I felt this book was very realistic as well. It had such good communication. It also had really good like boundary setting and just the progression of their relationship. They kind of go from these strangers who have just hooked up to having to navigate this new journey together and becoming friends and eventually lovers, and I just thought it was done really well, and there's so many details in this book that are just incredible. The characters really do have so much depth. Despite it only being in Win's point of view, I felt like we got to know both of them very well, and I just loved it so much. There were a few tiny little moments that made me cringe a tiny bit, that gave me the ick a tiny bit, basically just because Bo is just too much of a sweetheart. Like, I don't know, he was just too sweet that it made me uncomfortable sometimes. I was like, dude, just bully her a little, okay? Give me some lighthearted degradation, some banter. I don't know, he was just so sweet. He was too sweet. I wanted a little bit of like, I don't know, maybe that's toxic of me, but I still love them so much. And I don't know, I just felt like they were two normal people and we were just reading about two average people's story and I loved it. This next one, how do I phrase this? I enjoyed it when I read it, but thinking back on it now, I've changed my opinions a tiny bit. So this next book is Done and Dusted by Lila Sage. Initially, I gave this one a 4-star, but retrospectively, I think I'm going to drop it to a 3.5 star. I also gave it a 2.5 out of 5 on my spicy scale. So Emmy is our heroine and she's returning home early from the barrel racing circuit. She's a very successful barrel racer, but she's had a pretty bad fall of her horse and it's severely knocked her confidence to the point where she can't race anymore. Then we have Luke Brooks, hot bar owner, riding instructor, and of course, brother's best friend. This book was pretty lighthearted and honestly just a fun read. I really enjoyed the cast of characters and the setting, so I'm definitely interested in continuing the series and reading about Emmy's brother's books. However, the writing in this book felt pretty unpolished at times, especially, oh my god, the characters used each other's names in like every single sentence. They would be the only two characters in the entire scene and they would just end every sentence addressing each other. Like, I really want to like go back through and count how many times they used each other's names, but I think it would send me insane. I do also think, and this is something I won't say often like with any books, but I think it could have benefited from an additional scene or two. I talked about this in my reading vlog when I read this book, but the kind of progression of Emmy's regaining her confidence felt very, not rushed because it spans the entirety of the book, but we don't see the progression. So it kind of goes from being she's terrified of her horse, she's terrified to get on, she's having a panic attack going in the stable, to she's winning her local barrel racing competition. And there was no scenes in between where we saw her kind of regain a tiny bit of confidence, or she like sat on her horse for the first time and like thought and like realized that maybe it's okay, or that she had that breakthrough moment where she goes from being scared to actually feeling okay again. I would have really liked to see the representation of the ups and downs of her trauma a bit more, because we just got the two ends of the spectrum and I don't think that's realistic, and I just would have liked a little bit more. I still had fun with this book though. I think it has a little bit of ADHD representation in it, which, you know, I love a good bit of mental health representation in books, and honestly I'm a horse girl at heart, so any books set in small towns with horses and cowboys I am always gonna love. This next book, did I group all of my lower rating books together? I didn't do that intentionally. This is by Virtue Fault by Cora Riley. Here I am struggling, trying to still get through her Next Generation series. I gave this one a 3-star. Cora Riley is probably my favorite author. I adore her older Mafia series. They are some of my favorite books ever, but the Next Generation is just not hitting the same. This book had so much potential for me. It is a bodyguard romance where a much older Santino is tasked to look after Anna while she travels to Paris to undergo some fashion studies. But of course, he only sees her in a new light once they actually get to Paris, because if he was a bodyguard while she was under 18 and fancied her, it would have been creepy as hell. But everybody is legal, so it's like technically okay, I guess. It's Mafia, what do you expect? But yes, they move in together for Anna's safety, of course. One thing leads to another, and essentially the entire middle part of this book is just them having sex in different places of the apartment. So yeah, there was not a whole lot of plot. I would have loved to see them actually explore Paris, but we didn't really get that. On that note, I won't lie, I did skip quite a few of the sex scenes, which is why I'm not giving you a spicy rating, because I don't know, Cora's spice, I used to absolutely adore it like in her older books, but it's just not hitting the same. I think in this book I realized it's because it's only based on physical attraction. Like, I don't mind in books if the sex is based on physical attraction at the beginning, but I need that emotional development throughout the book and in intimate moments to actually feel connected and enjoy it, I guess. And it's just no foreplay. Like, that is not hot. There's no foreplay. It's just like straight, I don't enjoy it. Basis of the story is I want some emotional connection, and reflecting on this book right now, I feel like 3 stars could have been a tad bit generous, but you know, it's bonus points for Santino because he drives a Camaro. Okay, that's my favorite car. So he's chill. This next book is a lot better. I promise you, I quite enjoy this one. This is The Housemaid by Freddie McFadden. I gave this one a 4.5 star. I did actually vlog my entire experience with this book. I made a whole dedicated reading vlog to it for Halloween. It was full spoiler, so if you read this book, I would really encourage you to go read it, because to go watch it, go read the video, I don't know. To go watch the video, because I came up with some wild theories, and I just love like going back and watching my reactions because I think they're so funny. It was, of course, my first thriller, which is so exciting. I definitely think I'm going to be a thriller girly when I need to like cleanse my palette, or I just want to read a book in a day and be done with it, because I don't know, it was just such a fun, wild ride. I loved theorizing about things that would happen, and then when I was so blatantly wrong, it was kind of funny. And then I was just like so shocked with the twists, and it was just really fun. There was also one moment in this book, I don't know if Frida was like inspired or if it's just a classic trope for thrillers and mysteries, but it was so similar to a scene in Knives Out, just the way things were like unraveling. And I love that movie, so it was just such a good moment for me. And yeah, if you haven't read a thriller, or if you're interested in one, this one is very good. Next up, I have two little novellas that I read kind of back to back, to be honest, because I'm trying to chase my Goodreads goal. So the first one is The Edens, A Legacy Story. I gave this one 4 stars. It is literally just a 50-page long novella. It is super short, but I really loved reading it. It follows Anne and Harrison, who are actually the parents of all of the Eden siblings. It's essentially just a few chapters of Harrison and Anne rekindling their romance a few years after a pretty nasty breakup. I loved it though for its length. I felt like it had the perfect amount of angst, tension, emotional development as well. Character development, I felt like I got to know the characters a lot better as well. Yeah, this one definitely formed a very good foundation for the rest of the series, and I really enjoyed getting some kind of history and getting to know where it all started. Then I read the second novella in the Eden series. This is A Christmas in Quincy by Devney Perry, and I gave this one 4 stars as well. This one is actually the prequel novella to the Eden series. I'm not sure if it takes place before Indigo Ridge or after Indigo Ridge and before Juniper Hill, but anyway, it's the prequel novella, and it's just kind of a good introduction to the entire series, despite the fact that I've read it all already. But anyway, it was still good. This one is actually another bodyguard romance set in Quincy, where Cleo, our heroine, has run away from her overbearing family for the Christmas holidays. Her family is quite high status, and so she has a bodyguard, and he chases after her all the way to Quincy and tries to get her to come back, but they come to a little bit of a compromise and he ends up staying. And naturally, the hotel is sold out, so they have to stay in the same room. And of course, they end up spending the Christmas together, and you do kind of have to suspend your belief a tiny bit with this book because it's set over, I think, a 3-day period where they fall in love by the end of it. But you know, if you suspend your beliefs a little bit, it's still a pretty good book. This next book I read is Ice Planet Barbarians by Ruby Dixon. I gave this book a 3-star and a 4 out of 5 on my spicy scale. How do I start this review? So, how do I review this? Okay, I'm in the middle of a reading vlog where I read the highest and lowest rated books on my physical TBR, and Ice Planet Barbarians is the lowest book on my TBR. How do I review this? I was honestly shocked when I found out this book had a plot. And it's a decent plot at that too. It's pretty good actually. So Georgie and a few other women are kidnapped by these human trafficking aliens, and their spaceship ends up crash landing on Vector's planet. So once they've crash landed and their supplies begin to dwindle, Georgie kind of takes it upon herself to leave the spaceship and go on a big journey to try and find help. Now, she finds Vector, and he kind of goes a bit berserk. This is my first time reading a monster romance, so bear with me. He realizes that she is his mate, and he has this realization that there is potential for him to save his race, to prevent his race from dying out on this planet because they don't have many women left. So they basically end up just gallivanting around this snowy mountainous landscape. Vector like keeps her safe, feeds her. This book, the entire middle portion of this book is essentially just them eating, sleeping and having sex, until Georgie realizes that, you know, there's some girls she kind of needs to say. Yeah. This book is in no way a masterpiece, but I had so much fun with it. Like, it was probably the first book in quite a while that I've not wanted to put down. It was just so immersive and new that I just wanted to keep reading. It was also very easy to read. It's so easy to digest, and the story is like entertaining enough to keep you reading. And I don't know, if you're in a slump, I'd recommend this one. I honestly think I'm gonna pick up the second one. Yeah. Okay, back to human romances. This next book I had such high hopes for and it kind of didn't quite meet them. So this is Wildfire by Hannah Grace. I finished this about a week ago now, I think, and I'm on the fence of what to rate it. I'm very much between a 3.75 and a 4. I did also give it a 3 out of 5 on the spicy scale. So this right here, Wildfire, is the second installment of the Maple Hills series. This is the second book to Icebreaker, which is one of my favorite hockey books, one of my favorite golden retriever book boyfriends, Nathan Hawkins. I love him so much. However, Wildfire essentially looks Icebreaker in the eyes and says, fuck you, fuck your college and your hockey, I'm going to summer camp. I didn't quite like this one as much as Icebreaker, but I did still enjoy it. Early on in Hannah's writing process, very soon after Icebreaker was published, I actually saw that she expressed that she didn't want to include like any angst because it was just so cute and so adorable and wholesome, and she didn't want to upset how fluffy the characters in the story was, and I think that kind of shows when reading this book. I will say the angst I still did enjoy, but I think this book is way too long for what needed to happen. It feels like there's a lot of excess chapters in here, just a lot of throwaway chapters that don't progress the story, that don't really give us any additional depth to the characters. Like, I understand getting bite-sized portions of their experience at the summer camp, and I appreciate those, but it just felt like there was too many. Honestly, I think if this book was cut down by like 100 pages, it would have been a 5-star for me, because again, this book has the forbidden sneaking around aspect that I absolutely adore. I will say, however, why am I getting sweaty? I will say I absolutely adored the wide cast of characters in this book. Fish and her puppies were like some of my favorite little characters in like any book ever. And one thing Hannah really knows how to write is a swoon-worthy hero. Oh my god, I love Russ so much. I did find Aurora's little delusional Delulu moments amusing, but also a little bit annoying, but I did also really relate to her on them, so take that how you will. The spice in this one was really good. Like, definitely a step up from Icebreaker. I really enjoyed this book. And finally, we are coming to the last book that I have read recently. I finished this one a couple of days ago. This is Connor by Asa Varelli. I gave this one a 3.5 star and a 2.5 out of 5 chili peppers, maybe just a 2. No, 2.5 is probably good. This right here is the last book in the Boston Underworld series, and it follows Connor, who is the youngest in the gang and kind of still classified as their rookie. Plot of this one is that Connor is tasked by his boss to kill a woman who has associations with a rival gang. However, Connor and his little like soft side empathizes with her, and he decides to marry her instead to save her life. Plot of this book held so much potential for me. The whole premise I was in love with, but again, you're not going to hear me say this very often, but it needed to be longer. This book is 180 pages, and that just meant that the whole relationship between the two characters felt very undercooked, I suppose. It went from being, I hate you so much, I don't want to be with you, I am only with you so that you don't get killed, essentially, to I'm in love with you, I die for you, I will do anything in the world for you, let's get married, let's have kids. Within the span of like 10 pages, like the first 150 pages of this book is Connor talking about how much of a burden, I don't even remember what her name was, Ivy is, talking about how much of a burden she is and how he just feels sorry for her, but he's kind of stuck now. And then Ivy is like, oh, I don't want to be here, I'm gonna escape, blah, 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 blah. And then in the last 30 pages, they're just in love. Like, what? I still did enjoy it though. Like, I really enjoy Asa Varelli's writing, and I like her formulation of stories. This one fell a tiny bit short compared to the other three of hers that I've read, but I still enjoyed it. I still liked it. I still think it was a good mafia book, and I really enjoyed getting some insight into Connor's character, because from the first 2 books in the series that I've read, I really liked him. I just wish it could have been more. I just wish it was longer and like a 5-star. And with that, we have come to the end of my reading wrap up for the past few months. I am so sweaty because I can't have my fan on when I'm filming, otherwise it disrupts the audio, but it's fine. We've made it to the end, and I am honestly really happy with all of the books I've managed to read in the past few months. Hopefully I get to read a few more before the year ends. I'm really looking forward to some of them. I definitely want to do an end of year TBR, so keep an eye out for that. I'm happy with all these books, and I'm definitely looking forward to reading some more. Let me know down below if you've read any of these books and what your thoughts on them were, because I would absolutely love to hear hear them, I'd love to have a discussion with you. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. I really hope you've enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you have, and I will hopefully see you in the next one. Bye!